This is Ron Williams, and we'd like to welcome you to another version of our pastimes in Alabama and Georgia today. And I'd like for you to consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of content on Alabama and Georgia history, and I think you would enjoy it. Today, we're going to talk about tombstone art. Maybe you are like me. Do you like to visit old graveyards and meander in and out looking at all the old tombstones and reading the stones? If so, there is a word for people like me and like you, and that word is tapophile. Do you love visiting old cemeteries? Do you like to get away from others and just have some time to reflect? Do you see beauty in old cemeteries? If you enjoy those things, then you are a tapophile. Today, we will talk about some of the symbolism that you might see in an old graveyard. Did you know that typically husbands are buried on the right side while the wife is buried on the left? Did you know why? Well, the reason is because that's the way they stood when they got married. And I always thought that was very interesting. Did you know that graves always faced east, or at least they typically faced east in southern cemeteries, because the Lord will return in the eastern sky and they'll be ready on the day of rapture. Also, you may notice many cedar trees in an old cemetery. And the reason you'll see cedars and magnolias is because these trees are evergreens, and evergreens represent eternal life. There are many graves with just a simple fieldstone at the head and foot of the grave. And some graves have multiple fieldstones stacked on top of the grave, and these are called stacked graves. They are beautiful, but they do signify the poverty of the family of the person buried there in many cases. I like to think about the pioneers and realize that they lived in houses that were built on fieldstone pillars. They went to school and churches that rested on fieldstone pillars. Every bite of food was cooked in a fieldstone chimney. And when they died, a single fieldstone was placed at the head and foot of their grave. There are many symbols in an old cemetery. The dove is one symbol that is beautiful. It symbolizes resurrection, innocence, and peace with God. It is a symbol that the soul has been transported to heaven. Many times you'll see a broken column, and a broken column as well as the stump of a tree would indicate life cut short. There are many graves with hands on the grave, and hands represent relationship, either with people or with God. Many times you'll see a couple holding hands, and it represents the relationship on earth of the husband and wife. Many times you'll see the hand pointing up, signifying that the person has gone to be with God. And in some cases, you'll see the hand reaching down, and that indicates that God has reached down and claimed that person. One of the most common symbols in an old cemetery is the urn. The origin of the urn is considered to date back to ancient times when cremation was more common. As history continued and Christian burial became more common, the urn was still used because the urn had become symbolic of death. Also, many times you'll see a drape or a shroud over the grave, and it indicates that the shroud has been dropped by the departed on the trip to heaven. Other times you'll see a sleeping child, which indicates that the child is asleep in Jesus, and many times you'll see a tree. You can distinguish the tree by either being considered the tree of life from the Bible, or by considered the weeping willow, signifying sadness. This afternoon in Lanett, Alabama at the world-famous dollhouse. This is the grave of little 4-year-old Nadine Earls, who was diagnosed with diphtheria in 1933. As an early Christmas gift, her parents gave her a doll and a tea set, but she wanted her dollhouse, which had been started, which was not finished. And she said, "Me want it now." Those words haunted her father.
Nadine had been born on April 3rd, 1929, and she died less than 2 weeks from Christmas on December 18th, 1933. Her tombstone reads, "Little Nadine Earls, in heaven we hope to meet, me want it now." The dollhouse was finished in the spring of 1934, a monument to a sweet little 4-year-old girl and her heartbroken parents. We will see you next time here on Pastimes in Alabama and Georgia, and I'd like to remind you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Have a good evening. I would like to make you aware of a couple of books that I have for sale. The first one is Pastimes, and it's a collection of historical articles that I wrote about East Alabama and West Georgia that originally appeared in the Valley Times News several years ago. And there's also a special section on the Chambers murders. These murders occurred in 1959 in Chambers County, and Nella Jean Chambers and her father Jeff were murdered, and these crimes are over 60 years old today, and they were never solved. It really was an end to the innocence that this area experienced. And so the first book is called Pastimes, and my second most recent book is called Fieldstone Pillars. And Fieldstone Pillars is a remembrance of the older communities in the southeast corner of Chambers County, Alabama. It came out just a couple of months ago, and it is about the older communities such as Bethlehem and Glass, McGinney, Osanippa, Berlin, Hopewell, and then it stretches across the current Lee County line to include the communities of Striped Nation and Blanton. And I think you might really enjoy that one as well. To get information about how to order Pastimes or Fieldstone Pillars, you can email me at pastimes2021@gmail.com. Once again, that's pastimes2021@gmail.com. Have a good day.